I found my passion through like watching a random streamer online. Like my career path has now been defined by this random person doing one thing for this one afternoon. So I think if I had to tell you one thing, it's like, don't worry about finding your passions, because everybody has a passion even if they don't know it yet, and you can find those passions anywhere.
Juggling classes, making friends, studying tips, saving money. We're talking about all things college and giving you advice with real college students. Featuring today's hosts, Gabriel, Kelso, and Shalom, Adkins. Welcome to the Campus Underground podcast by Sallie. Sit back, relax, and learn new hacks.
Hi guys, welcome back to the Campus Underground, your one-stop shop for everything college. Today we're going to be talking about balancing your fun with your funds and your future. So I'm going to be your host today, Gabe. I'm joined by Shalom, Charlotte, Tony, and Chenna. So can everyone just go around real quick? Can you tell me a little bit about your education background? So I'll start off. I'm currently in my second year of a 4-year art school.
I am in my last year out of 4-year studying pre-med, and I went to a 2-year community college, graduated, and then transferred.
I'm Chenna, and I just recently graduated with an associate in paralegal studies and am going back for criminal justice law and legal.
I'm a recent graduate, and I have a bachelor's of science in computer science and a minor in data science.
And I went to aesthetic school, and I graduated and got my license in 2022.
All right, nice. Good to know. So just to find out even a little bit more about each other, just like how we think, what our opinions are, we're going to do some would you rathers real quick. So our first would you rather is, would you rather leave school early for a good opportunity, or would you rather stay in school and finish your degree?
That's a hard one because they are both like such good options, but also not. I'm going to say, speaking from experience, I left school for an amazing job offer. And as awesome as it was working for these people and how great the pay was, I realized that I still want to finish school. So I went back to school. Thinking back, I'm like, man, if you just finish school first, you can always have awesome opportunities after.
Yeah, I definitely agree. This is definitely a hard question, and it just makes me think of some of my favorite college athletes that I watch play, and that time comes when it's time for them to either go into the professional draft or stick and stay in school. And, you know, this is millions of dollars on the line, so it can be a very tough decision. But I just look at it as probably I would stay in school, because those opportunities, if they're there now, they'll probably be there again in the future once you're done.
If finances are really a problem, then I would say, try to find like a good part-time job, but definitely finish school as quickly as possible.
From my own experience, I left school and had a great kind of opportunity come up, but then that opportunity led me to then find my real passion, and that led me to where I'm supposed to be now. So I would say take the opportunity.
Yeah, I think I feel kind of similarly. I would personally almost always stay in school, but I think there are some circumstances where if I get an opportunity in a career that I really love, that I know could lead to like a permanent career in that field, then I might be seriously considering leaving school early. So the next one I want to know is, would you rather work extra hours or have more me time?
I like that question because it kind of puts into perspective like what's important, like making money or having time for yourself. And while they're both important, I think it depends on where you are in life. So for me, knowing the type of person I am, I would rather work, just because like there's always time for myself. But if I can be as successful and profitable as I can be, then I'm going to work.
I think for some people, it might not even be a choice. You might just have to work. But if you are in a place where you can just keep your mental health and your own personal priorities in mind, but you still have to make money. So I don't know if I really answered the question, but if you can find a balance, that would probably be my answer there.
Yeah, that makes sense, yeah.
If the question is for a person still in college, me time or work as extra as they can, then I'd say the me time. If it's a situation, again, not everyone's as fortunate to where they could just decide me time or finances. If something like that is the case, then it would be, once your grades are aligned and all that. If you have the mental capacity and energy, I believe you should try to work as much as possible while you still can.
I kind of agree to all of that. I personally think that I need a lot of time to like kind of recharge, but also it totally goes on like finances and stuff. If money's tight, then I'll definitely take the shift, work the extra hours.
Yeah, I kind of feel similarly. And then you just kind of have to do that mental math of like how much time versus happiness versus money and how do those things kind of equal out. So our next one is, would you rather go thrifting or save up for what you want?
That is easy for me to answer only because I've never gone thrifting. Really? It's kind of shocking.
Missing out.
I don't know. I have a goal to go, but I would probably just save up for whatever it is I want. But I do want to go to a thrift shop one day.
Yeah, you can find some gems. You can really find some gems. I think, okay, I would say thrifting off, just off the top of my head. But if it's something specific that I really, really want, then I'm going to save for it. Sorry, I can't pick one or the other.
Yeah, that's totally fair.
I'd say thrifting always. I really like thrifting and I love fashion. And also, there's a lot of like thrifting events so that you could go find a sense of community.
Yeah, I agree to that. Thrifting is like a ton of fun. You have no idea what you're going to find. Just like even the act of just going, even if you don't leave with anything, it's just almost like a hobby. It's fun.
I kind of look at everything through this like math approach, like how many hours am I going to get out of this thing I buy? So for clothes, I might have bought this at a thrift store for like $5. I've gotten hundreds of hours out of this flannel, so you can get a lot of time from really a lot less money if you're thrifting, but also some stuff like if you want something that's going to give you that kind of longevity, sometimes you have to spend more money to get it. This next one is really interesting. Would you rather be open about finances or keep it private?
I think in terms of college, I think it's good to be transparent because it helps others, wherever you are in those 4 years of your life or those 2 years or, just under the college umbrella. I think it's good to be open because you never know who can learn from you. I mean, personally, I learned a lot from people being open about their college finances and their hardships, their struggles, their victories, because we're all so young, and it's like we can learn a lot from each other if we're transparent.
So true. I think probably the unwritten rule is that you're supposed to keep your finances to yourself. But the flip side of that is a closed mouth doesn't get fed. So, you got to open up and you got to talk, and you never know what help or assistance may come your way. And like Shalom said, you might actually be helping someone also in the same way.
I would say to be open as a student, especially because there's so many good resources out there available. A lot of people are struggling to make ends meet as well as go to school simultaneously, and so it's not like you would be alone in that, and so there's definitely a community out there for people.
I totally agree. I mean, like, I know personally I've been open about my finances, like even to this day, and I have friends that work in finance or whatever, and they're like, okay, you need to move your money and put it in like this type of savings account and all that stuff, and I would never learn any of that if I kept my mouth shut.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you guys. It's important to be open whether you are financially struggling, like with college, or if you're not, because it can kind of give other people a lot more comfort to see other people going through a similar thing.
And I also want to add, like, just ask. I mean, you'd be surprised how many people are open about it if you just ask them. Like, hey, how are you paying for college? Or how do you afford that? And people are so transparent if you just ask them.
Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah, definitely. So another one, would you rather do something you enjoy doing, like maybe a short-term thing right now and spend some money doing that, or save up for your future?
Yeah, I think it depends because I'm all about living in the moment, but also preparing for your future. So I think that if you can afford to live in the moment and enjoy it while saving, that's optimal, right? But if you can't, I'd say save up for the future because the future is what's going to matter the most, The
future is important. But I'm going to do what I want to do right now.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. If I can afford to do something and I had to choose between doing what I want to do and saving that for something later, I'm probably going to do the impulsive thing because it's not even fear of missing out. It's more so I don't want to have that regret.
Yeah.
But don't go broke, That's not my advice.
That's important.
Yeah.
I'm all for like enjoyment as long as you're living within your means. Yes, have fun and enjoyment, but you could have fun going to the park. Obviously, if you can afford it, take a trip here and there, But at the end of the day, I believe, especially while you're trying to build towards something, be as frugal as possible.
I think like experiences are like what you look back on, and like especially in college, like the memories that you have. And so like if you could go on a trip with your friends, like try to take that if you can afford it. But just like Tony said, like going to get a coffee with your best friend can be also just a really fun experience too. So try to make fun of what you can when you have it.
What's the term? There's a term for it. Like, don't be spending now at the expense of your future self. You should be saving now so that your future self has more room, or at least that's my personal opinion of it.
That's good.
The next one, this is one I feel very, very strongly about. Would you rather have free food for the school year or free supplies for the school year?
Tough. I'm picky with my food, so I'm like, I want to say food, but I won't eat any. I think I'd say food, because I think we spend more money as college students on food than we do on supplies. However, I think it depends on the major you're in. Like if you're in a major that needs a lot of supplies, or that's like expensive and it's going to cost like materials, then like maybe supplies make sense. But for me personally, I would say food.
That's really smart, because I know some culinary students that have to spend a lot of money on all their tools and cooking supplies. But for me, yes, I would go with the food. Gotta eat, and we'll figure out a way to get those supplies another way. Someone's giving a giveaway somewhere.
Yeah, I'd say food, definitely. I love food. You gotta fuel your brain, obviously. You could always borrow a laptop from somebody or share a book with somebody, so definitely food.
With the whole supplies thing and cost, I think like it definitely depends on your major, I would say too. Like I bet Gabe, with the arts, I bet the supplies is crazy.
That's what I was going to say. This is the only one where you're not going to hear me say, oh, it's like a math thing. It's food. I'm choosing food every single time. I'm the type of person, I measure my paychecks in how many lunches I can buy with it. There's a lot more places where you can buy cheap supplies than it is where you can like you can thrift paintbrushes for like $2 in some places. But you can't, I guess you could, but I wouldn't recommend thrifting food for $2. Like,
Oh, no.
if you need to, you can borrow your classmates' pencils. You cannot borrow your classmates' sandwich and give it back to them at the end of class. That's just not really an option. If I could get free food, I would be so happy. So another really interesting one is, would you rather start repayment in school or after you graduate?
Oh, I would say if you can, start repayment in school. I just think it makes sense, because then when you're graduated, you don't have to like necessarily immediately start paying off your loans or work for the school that you just went to, versus if you can do it in school. Why not?
Yeah, I mean, if you can. I don't know how much of an option it is for a lot of students to be able to pay while they're still in school. If you can, obviously you should. I don't think I know too many people that had the choice and probably had to wait until they graduated and started working, and now they are going through this process of paying back their loans. Yeah.
If you can start paying, then start paying. A majority of everybody I know that went to college still has some form of debt left. You could live kind of in the moment in college and then not really worry about anything else, and then, oh, you just graduated and now you have a bunch of debt. So definitely, while you're in school, I'd say it's more realistic in today's society, going to have to be after you graduate.
I think if you can go after it and start paying your loans like while you're in it, definitely try, especially before that interest rate sets in. But the school that I went to, I paid as I went, so I had the opportunity to do that.
If you have the option to be paying, then you should absolutely be trying to pay at least a little bit while you're in school, because things can seriously get out of control if you wait till after school. So I think take control when you know that you have control than waiting in the future when you might not have that same control. Another one is, would you rather fill out the FAFSA or skip it altogether?
I would rather fill out the FAFSA, only because I didn't know you can skip it.
I also didn't know that.
Yeah, all of my like high school counselors as well as college counselors like, you can't go to college if you don't fill out the FAFSA. So it was like FAFSA or nothing, But if you can, I mean, I guess that's kind of cool. You don't have to go through that long process, but I would do the FAFSA because the FAFSA gives you free money depending on your answers, which is cool. Yeah.
Absolutely. FAFSA all the way. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think FAFSA is a no-brainer.
So I would say FAFSA all the way. I know from my experience, I went to aesthetic school, and since I started aesthetic school when I was, I think, 21, 22, but I didn't have my undergrad. And so when I applied to aesthetic school, I had the option to then apply for FAFSA because I didn't have an undergrad, which I had no idea I'd have the option. So then I was able to get some assistance putting myself into this trade school, and I never thought that would be an option. So I would always say try FAFSA. You have no idea what you're going to get. It's definitely worth it.
Yeah, I think some people aren't really aware. They think, oh, well, I'm not going to get awarded anything, so what's the point? But it costs nothing, and you might get a lot of support from it. Our last Would You Rather for the day is, and this is a really big one, because this is a real decision that people have to make all the time when going to college. Would you rather choose a school that is a lower tuition or choose a school with a higher tuition to follow your passions?
I would say choose a school with a higher tuition to follow your passion, because in the end, your passion is going to be your payout. So if you go to a cheaper school and they don't offer what you want, like, why even go at that point? You know, it's like spend the extra money, and at least in the end, you're doing what you want to do and you'll be happy in it.
If there's a way to go to the lower tuition school and still kind of find courses or find a way to sort of carve your path that gets you closer to that end goal, then yeah, lower tuition school all the way. Even if it's not exactly what you wanted, the courses that you take at that lower tuition school will set you up for that end game. But if this passion is sort of like a niche and you've got to go to this higher tuition school, then there's not really a way around that.
That was a decision I had to make. My biggest passions in life are music and fashion, but I didn't want to depend on the things that I love to have to make money from that and be like, oh, well, this must profit, because then I feel like the love and fun gets taken out of stuff like that. Even if you're passionate about something, you could always get a degree in something that you know is going to be profitable, make money, and then you could fund your passions with the money that you make.
Mm-hmm.
I agree to that. Get the degree with the lower tuition, and you can make your resume and like do things outside of school, do like things that you're going to get the experience that then you can work towards the end goal, but in different ways.
Yeah, I definitely agree. The way that I personally approach this kind of thing is I guess the things that I'm most passionate about, I guess you call it like dream jobs, I kind of have that as like my plan B. I try to go to school for things that I know that I can definitely land a career in. And then while I'm taking this course in something that I know that I could spend my life doing and be perfectly fine with it, I wouldn't be miserable, then I kind of pursue those passions on the side. So maybe I do find a place in this passion and I do that for my career, and that would be incredible. But if I don't, then I'm still on this path to a career that I'm perfectly fine in, and I can always pursue those things on the side.
I really like that. That makes me think of something my dad always told me growing up. He always said, like, whatever you pursue, make sure it makes money, whether that's your passion or not, and you can still have your passion, and the goal is your passion will make you money, but make sure you always have something that'll bring you income so that you don't go broke,
Yeah.
So I think that's so good. I really like that.
Antonio, I remember you said you should be securing your financial future before you explore any passions. Could you go a little farther into that?
Yeah, so I'd say every paycheck, especially as a student, at least a certain amount of percent of every check should be put away to have a certain foundation before, like we said, getting to the passions. We should at least, all right, I have this amount saved up. Now I could maybe try to go invest into this or something like that. And I really think just little increments go a long way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's really good because, I feel like college students don't necessarily budget, or at least I know a lot of us don't. And then it's like you're scrambling for funds or trying to figure out how to balance, going to a party or going on a little girls' trip while also having to pay for gas and having to pay for food or textbooks. So it's like if you make a budget, for the semester or even a weekly budget, it really helps, set a goal, and it really helps you, not deteriorate to freaking out and oh my gosh, I don't know what to do for money,
Especially if you're learning just now, maybe this isn't something that was stressed throughout your life as you were growing up or in your adolescence, and even in high school it's definitely not talked about, and then you're just thrown into this ocean and they're just like, now go swim and make sure you don't go broke. How are you supposed to figure that out? And you make mistakes along the way, but you realize what becomes important and you start to get those priorities in order because you have no choice.
Yeah, and I think it can be a little bit scary because, like you said, it is a trial by fire, but in the case that you don't necessarily pass the trial, then you're in the this horrible situation where you're broke and you don't have any money and like, how am I going to buy food? So I think it can definitely be a little bit scary, but that's why I think that it's important to like get started early, like get a job early, save up some money early. You should always have like a little bit of backup.
Absolutely.
Like having an emergency fund.
Emergency
So
fund.
important,
Yeah.
especially when you're in college. 'Cause
Oh,
it's like
definitely.
you don't
Yeah.
realize when you're going to spend, or if you're spending more money, it's like, oh my gosh, I don't have any. But if you have an emergency fund, then like, whew, thank God for that.
I
you
can
know?
chime in on that. So I graduated a year and a half ago, and I was bartending to pay through college, and I lost my job unexpectedly. Didn't have any savings at that time right after I graduated. You know, if I had prepared before then, I could have overcame some of the obstacles that I faced at that time. Before you get in a crisis, prepare for worst case scenarios.
A little personal experience would have been your financial aid. Like financial aid is like just this thing, you know, you don't actually get to touch it, hold it, feel it. And, you know, it's a click of a button and your books are paid for. You know what I mean? That financial aid doesn't hit, you can't get those books.
Yeah.
So until it does hit, you may have to go into your own pocket. And that has actually happened to me, where there was an issue with financial aid one year, and I did have to go into my own pocket until, you know, those funds became available. So if you don't have those funds, then how do you pay for your books? How do you pay for your supplies to get through the semester?
Yeah, it's definitely important to save some for your future, and you also need to save some for very near future self in case you need it. I want to ask two things. I want to compare the experiences of Charlotte and Shalom, because I think you guys had a kind of similar thing happen, but it kind of worked out in different ways. So Charlotte, you said you left school and you found the aestheticist. You know the thing I'm referencing. Thank you. Can't pronounce it.
Yeah.
But you found that, and when you left school, you kind of were able to find your passion. But Shalom, you said that when you left, you followed this career path for a little bit, and then you found that you might want to go back to school. So what was kind of your experience when you left? Like, how did you stumble into the aesthetician realm?
It's definitely a tough pronunciation, I'll say. But so I did a million different things. I graduated high school. I thought I wanted to do nursing school. I knew in my head I always loved dermatology. It was always going to be skincare for me. But it was just kind of how I was going to get there. Mm-hmm. So I'm very thankful that I didn't go to a 4-year college. And I know that's not a lot of people say that. But if I did, then I would have graduated with a degree that I no longer, or I don't think I ever would have used. Out of high school, I got my CNA, was a nursing assistant. Worked for about like 6 months as a nursing assistant, realized that wasn't my passion. So then I went and took some prereqs, just trying to figure out where I was going, what I was doing, and got an opportunity to work at a front desk at a skin studio, which then I worked hand in hand with estheticians and just kind of putting myself in that industry, and realized, you know, this is always what I wanted to do. This is my passion, and it just took me a while to get there. But so I'm happy that I stepped away from the school that I was going to, because I was just doing prereqs, trying to figure out what I was going to do in my life. So definitely a little different than like all my friends when they were in college and stuff. But I found my passion, and now I am like doing what I love. So
yeah, that's great. So Shalom, what was your experience? So you said you left, but then you came back because it didn't quite like work out?
Yeah, and I love your story. That's so cool, because like I had a totally different experience, and I would say I left, but I also didn't. Like I finished my associates, and then I was like, why rush going back into a 4-year? Like I'm gonna take a break, you know. So I didn't go back to school for a while, and when I was in school, I got my associates in biology because I was like, I want to be a doctor. Like I love the field. I'm so passionate about healthcare. But I really wanted a break from school. I was like, I feel a little overworked with like homework and classes and professors. I'm going to take a break. And I got a really good job offer. So I started working, and I come from a family that does not go to college. Like no one went to college. My grandparents didn't, like just all the way. So I didn't necessarily have that, like, you need to go to school, or what are you doing with your life? You know, my whole family are like entertainment people. So it's kind of like, oh, use your talent, use your gift, like sing, make movies, you know? And so I'm thinking like, oh, I'll become a model, or I'll act, you know, like, and that just didn't happen for me, you know? And the longer I was out of school, the more I realized like, I want to go back. I feel like I'm wasting time, you know, like I am not necessarily like my environment, or I'm not necessarily like my friends that are, you know, found their passion or found their calling outside of education. So for me, it was kind of like I had a feeling deep down that I knew I wanted to like become a doctor pretty much. And I'm like, I can't do that and not go to school, you know, like nobody wants a doctor that didn't go to school to work on them. So I was just kind of like, I need to go back to school. And I'm really glad I did, because I'm like loving it. And I'm just like, man, why did I ever leave? You know, but I definitely am glad that I took that time to really like make sure this is what I wanted. You know, I'm not going to ever say I regret not going to school for almost 2 years, because I grew a lot and I learned a lot about myself, and I really learned what I did and didn't want. Yeah. So like nothing wrong with taking a break from school, because it really helps you realign your goals and your focus. And for me, it just gave me the fire under my butt to finish.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And I think that's so important. Like high schools really do push a 4-year college on you like immediately.
Oh, yeah.
And so, I mean, when I graduated, no one in my hometown was around unless they went to a community college. And like, yeah, then we did hang out and whatever. But I watched like all my friends go and get these degrees because that was pushed on them. It was like, you should go to school. Even like when I didn't like the CNA, and I was like, okay, well, I feel like I have to go do something.
Absolutely.
And so taking the break is like not necessarily what everyone does, but it really does then help you kind of figure out what your passion is and what you want to do.
Yeah, it feels taboo, but
It does.
you learn a lot, you know. And even with like 4 years, like so many, you know, of your peers and everyone's like, oh, I'm going to this school, I'm going to this school. And it's like also like 2-year colleges are so awesome to like spend that time. Like when I first started going to community college, I didn't necessarily know what I wanted to do. And I was afraid of math and science. I'm like, I don't want to do that. But then the more I got into it, I'm like, wait, this stuff is awesome. Like I love it, you know. So it's like spending those 2 years in a community college really helped me grow and realize like what I want to study when I go to school or when I take my profession, my career serious. So it's like there's so many options out there that you don't really learn about unless you like put yourself out there.
And financially speaking, if it's a financial issue where you feel like you need to work or you literally have to work, maybe you started a family or, you know, whatever the financial burden may be in your life, but you still want to go to school. There's nothing wrong with taking that break. And in my case, what I did was I did go to a community college instead of a 4-year because I had to work. Therefore, I knew that my path was going to be a little different than my friends that went off and, you know, did 4-year colleges and 4-year universities. And that's absolutely wonderful too. I knew that I was going to be going to a 2-year school, and I knew that I was going to be taking classes part-time versus full-time. So I just knew that my path and my journey was going to be a little different, a little bit longer, but I was still going for my goals while working and making money.
Another thing I want to kind of discuss is what we really want to do here is we want to give everyone advice. I want to hear about some advice you guys have gotten. What's some good advice and what's some, I think we can learn a lot from bad advice, and sometimes bad advice is really fun. So what's kind of the best advice, the worst advice, and some really unexpected advice that you guys have got that's like really affected your journey?
I would say you would naturally hear, you know, focus on your studies obviously first. And so it might be, you know, contradicting to say join as many clubs as possible and get in as many different organizations at school or within your local community as possible, I'd say, because at the end of the day, it's all about networking. And yes, the degree is also important, but it's also important who you know. And, you know, you might meet somebody in a chess club that you might get a job here, and then you stay connected with them, and you're like, reach out after you graduate. Just rub as many shoulders as you possibly can. If you have the energy to join XYZ, then to do it, and to don't be scared and put your eggs in as many different baskets as possible.
Yeah, I kind of did a similar thing. I go to a very big college, so this might not be possible in smaller colleges, but in my first semester, what I would do is I would literally just like go to the gym and find a pickup game of a random sport to play. Yep. Ping pong, and I played some badminton, and eventually I tried some volleyball, and I was not very good at it because I had not played volleyball before, but I had a lot of fun with that. And like you said, you can find like connections and like career paths through that. So just trying everything, I definitely agree. Try all sorts of stuff to kind of see where those career paths or paths in general can take you.
I would say some bad advice I got was that attendance doesn't matter and you don't have to show up to all your classes. A lot of my friends are like, oh, like who cares if you skip a class, or like it doesn't matter. They don't take points away for attendance, or like you don't have to be in the lecture. And oh my gosh, I should have never listened to that advice, because attendance does matter, and being in class is honestly what college is all about, right? So don't miss out on what you're learning. I mean, a lot of people are paying to be there, or, you know, they're working so hard to be in college. It's like, why would you not go to your classes? So for me, it was like, I learned the hard way, and I didn't go to a few classes occasionally, and then it turned into like just skipping classes all around. And I was like, oh my gosh, when the exams would come or the homework, I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. This wasn't in the lecture notes online, or this wasn't in the book. And it's like, oh, well, that was only taught in class. So definitely don't skip class. I know a lot of people are like, oh, you can, but don't do it.
Yeah, I think that's kind of a false logical standpoint to be like, oh, well, you don't get points off of your grade if you skip class. Like, yeah, you don't get points off for every class you miss, but if you're not going to class, then you're going to get your points off when you don't know any of the stuff in the class. Yeah. So, like, you technically, by the most insane technicals, don't have to go to class, but if you don't go to class, then you're basically wasting your time and your money at school, I think.
It might not be finance related, but I was given advice. Again, I went to a community college and I did go part-time, so that's doubling the amount of time that I would be going to school. And I was trying to take as many credits as I could per semester, and my advisor sat me down and said, don't do that. Yeah. I understand that you're trying to get there as quickly as possible. Obviously, your path is not going to be a 2-year journey. It's more so going to be more like a 3.5-year journey. Mm-hmm. But by you top loading yourself like this, you might be setting yourself up for disaster by trying to get there quicker. So just let it happen naturally, and you know, take the amount of classes that make sense for your life. So that was really good advice.
So my advice would be similar to kind of what I did. Like, I got a front desk job because I thought that I'd want to do skincare, and that helped me then figure out that I did. And like what Tony said, like, all your experiences, and like immerse yourself in different things with different people, because you have no idea who you're going to meet. And like going to a community college, or for me, like trade school, I'm watching all of my friends make new best friends when they're at their 4-year college, and like you could feel really lonely. Mm-hmm. So what I did is I worked like retail, and I surrounded myself with people that were around my age, and then making new friends. And then you have no idea who you're going to meet. Or like if you do a random like chess club or something like that, and then that's on your resume, you go in for a job interview and they could be like, oh my God, I love chess. And there you go. You have the connection. So just kind of like trying to like immerse yourself in a million different things and learn new skills and meet new people as much as you can. It could be scary. It could feel awkward, but you don't know where you're going to use that next.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely agree. If I had to give any advice, it may seem scary, but I think that everybody does find their path eventually. Like, we have all sorts of different paths here. We have community college, we have taking a break between semesters, we have trade school, we have all sorts of kind of things. And I found my path in a very strange way. The reason that I'm a graphic design major actually is the most, I think, bizarre way anybody's ever become a graphic design major. Like, a lot of people, they're like, oh, I really liked art in middle school and high school. That's not how I ended up being a graphic design major. The way I became a graphic design major was I was watching a streamer one time, and it was not an art streamer. It was like a completely random celebrity streaming online. And they were streaming learning an art program. And it was in the middle of COVID. It was like March 2020, or actually it was probably like June 2020. And I was like, I'm not doing anything. If they're going to do this, I'm going to do this. I'll learn this program. And I learned that program, and I fell in love with this art program. It's like super versatile. I can do all this stuff. And I started learning other art programs, and I started learning about composition, and I started learning all this stuff. So like, I found my passion through like watching a random streamer online. Like, my career path has now been defined by this random person doing one thing for this one afternoon. So I think if I had to tell you one thing, it's like, don't worry about finding your passions, because everybody has a passion, even if they don't know it yet. And you can find those passions anywhere. And you really don't have to worry about like, oh, well, I don't know yet. You will find it eventually, I think.
I love that. That is so funny.
Yeah.
It's like a few years down the line, you're like, I am who I am today because of a Twitch streamer.
It's true.
You know?
It is unfortunately true. So thank you guys. That was a great time. I think everybody had something really insightful to share. And I'm glad we got to share so many different paths, because I feel like that really shows what's possible. There's so many different possibilities. So thank you guys for watching Campus Underground, and we'll catch you on the next one.